like, like they got like this young generation of women, young women, who are having babies. They're having children, and yet the men that they're having the children with, they're not with them. They're not marrying them. And so you have like a daughter or a niece, you older people, your older generation, who has children, and yet there's no man there to support her. And yet, though they have no support, they won't put the men on child support. They won't do it. And then when Christmas or school starts, or just something happens with their car, or something, or Easter comes, whatever the situation that requires resources, they're looking at you to support and take, like how they say, a village. They're looking at the village to raise the children and support them and do for them as if they were still at home, as if they were a child. They want you to support and still take care of them, when yet they lay with this man, this young man, and he's nowhere in the picture. He's not there. And I don't mind that being the situation, but even though he's not there, his money should be there, his resources for those kids. You can't lay down and have a child. That is a contract between you and that man in the heavens. For a child to come here, because see, in the metaphysical world, that child chose you and that person as their parents. In the metaphysical world, they chose you. That's why the magnetism between a boy and a girl, when that girl sees that boy, or that boy sees that girl, or young man or young woman sees each other, that magnetism of them being attracted to each other is that child. The child in them trying to come here in the flesh. That's the magnetism. It's the child in them. That's the attraction. Because that child is choosing from within them who it wants to be their parent, who it wants to be their mother. That's the medical physical world. That's where I learned that. That they actually, before we come here, a lot of people are like, I ain't chose to come here. Bullshit if you didn't. Bullshit if you didn't. Yes, you did choose to come here. And you choose your parents. You choose them. And so, if that's the case, if that's then the responsibility lies in the parenting and guardianship of that child between those two people. You can't just let one, even without the sanctity of marriage, you can't just walk away from that contract. It's a sexual binding contract that you brought that child here. And when you walk away from that, you're going to have a sexually binding karma. And you're going to have to come back here. And you're going to have to go through that same initiation of having a child and seeing if you're going to take care of that child in another lifetime. And if you don't, then you're going to have another reincarnation and another reincarnation until that shit burns out. It's called a second death. Yeah. But when you're given that initiation, even if you're given it here in this lifetime, let's say that they separated, and then that comes to you again, the Bible even says, if that initiation comes before you, and you say, I'm not going to leave this child, well, then your karmas are forgiven. That's the way it works. Just that one time you can say, I'm not. Or let's take, for instance, let's say you are messing with a. Let's just change the whole subject up, and let's just kind of segue into karma. You know, like if you had a situation where you mess with a married woman, and you create karma for yourself, that woman, and that married man, you created karma. And then a bad situation happens, and you get instant karma. Let's say you got an instant karma. Something bad happens because you messed with a married person, which is sacred. You're standing on sacred ground. You're messing with sacred things. But in this lifetime, this heavens, the universe, will realign that initiation for you to go through that again. And if you walk away from it and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that again. That was a mistake I made. The universe will reward you, and that karma shall be forgiven. That karma shall be erased. and you're balanced out, you'll be back balanced out in the scales of your soul, whether it's light enough or heavy enough, light enough to ascend back to the heavens. You'll balance back out, in the scales of from the book of life, and from Egypt, the scales. So I just wanted to talk about the young generation because I see that, and it's going on with a lot of people, and a lot of young men in the black community, and people always have a comment because I see black community like we don't have a black community. Maybe you didn't grow up in a black community, then that's your damn mama fault. The same subject I'm talking about. But there's plenty of people in my town that grew up in an actual black community. They had their mama, their daddy, all the houses, and the people were middle class people that had cars. They weren't poor. They're a middle class black community. It's at least 4 or 5 in my city, and in multicultural neighborhoods there. This is what's going on. I just want to talk about it. Have a blessed day. And remember, treat people like how you want to be treated.